Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, welcome to this special session on cross-cutting partnerships and data interoperability, investing in One Health for sustainable and a healthy future. As you are all probably aware, One Health is a relatively new topic under the GEO umbrella. So I would like to spend a few minutes to just briefly introduce the concept of One Health. So One Health is really addressing the interconnectedness between people, animal, and the environment. So this each species on this planetary Earth is all very well connected, nothing in isolation. And in the past, I believe One Health is largely derived from zoonotic disease research. So it's pretty much on the microorganisms, so at the micro scale. But in this session, really, we try to link these micro scale processes, dynamics, with macro processes using Earth observation data. For example, the land use changes, ecosystem fragmentation, and the migration of animals, etc. They will all affect the movement of the microbes and eventually affect human health and animal health. And beyond this traditional zoonotic disease research, actually, currently One Health has been expanded, not just related to the organisms, but also the chemicals, the pollution levels, and particularly, for example, air pollution. And today we have speakers, for example, we'll be talking about mercury movement at the global scale and human exposure, and how can we mitigate the impact of chemical pollution on human health and ecosystem health. I think that with this brief introduction, we will move on to our the session outline is like that. After my brief introduction, we will have several flash talks with 6 flash talks, each with 5 minutes. And after that, we will be opening for discussion, and then I will wrap up this session. And we really look forward to have intensive interactions with the audience today, and to see how Earth observation technology or Earth intelligence can help understand the dynamic of microorganisms and with chemical pollution, etc., to ensure that the future is sustainable and healthy. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Nicola Peroni. He's a professor at the National Research Council of Italy, Institute of Atmospheric Pollution Research. Nicola, you can move the slides by this one? Yeah? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry that I will not talk about mercury today, but there was probably some misunderstanding. But because this is a great opportunity to inform all the GEO audience about what we are doing in Europe to support the One Health approach. As has been already said, One Health approach is very challenging because it's putting together different type of data that can go from satellite to in situ to micro scale, really micro scale, and then integrate different geographical scale, because you go from very small scale to global. And you put together also, when you talk about exposome research, how to link environmental pressure to human health, and what are the patterns that can chemicals, so any type of anthropogenic factor can affect the human health. It's a quite complex exercise, and the overarching goal is really to decouple the information due to chemical exposure, so environmental pollution in general, from the genetic factor. So that is really the overarching factor. activity of One Health approach. Then, of course, the activity that we have been carrying out in the last few years, I don't know if I have the slides.
You can move the
okay, let's see. Yeah. So in the last few years, we have been developing an infrastructure, research infrastructure in Europe under the umbrella of ESFRI, that is the European Strategic Forum for Research Infrastructure, with the goal of merging together environmental research with exposome studies in order to come up with a mitigation strategy to lower the risk for humans exposed to different level of anthropogenic pressure. So this is, I took this opportunity just for information. So this infrastructure nowadays counts 25 nodes, primarily in Europe, but we have also a node in North America and one in Japan. And so it's really moving to become a global scale infrastructure, involves almost 100 different institutions worldwide. And as a CNR, we coordinate the national node in Italy that includes contribution also from Italian Space Agency, National Institute of Health, and different several universities. And so the three running question of this session was really what is the role of Earth observation and Earth observation, not only data technology, in assessing, in developing this One Health approach. So this is just to tell you what we talk about when we talk about One Health. So what does that mean? It means that you have to merge environmental research. So you have to do top-down or bottom-up evaluation. So you start from the symptom. So you start from the environmental factor. So the drivers. So at the end, you have in the middle all kind of omics research like epigenetics, just to distinguish genetic factor from environmental factors. And then on the right side of that scheme that you see here, there is all the data technology to support the policymaker, decision maker to shape mitigation strategy that you can implement it from local to global scale. So that is just a conceptual approach, just to provide you more details, how you can do longitudinal studies for One Health approach, how you can put together different data with different metrics on different spatial scale, because that is very complex approach to One Health. You know, nowadays we hear about One Health very often, but then you have to nest down to the specific problem. But the final goal of One Health is really to support the decision-making process through state-of-the-art technology, artificial intelligence. We develop a digital twin and so on. So that's this infrastructure is an horizontal infrastructure, is interacting with the many vertical infrastructure that you have been also listening about it here in GEO in different session. So we have that is my last slide. We have several projects supporting the process, just to be concrete, and we are moving this infrastructure to ERIC business model, but we have also infrastructure that project that will allow us to produce technology to support this One Health approach. So I am here for any question.
Yeah, okay. Let's save the questions for the end of all the presentations. Thank you very much, Nicola. I just forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, actually. I'm Yong Guanzhu from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. I have been working on One Health over the last 20 years or so, particularly on the microbiome. Now, it is my pleasure to actually invite Professor Qiyong Liu. Professor Liu is from China CDC. He has been working on infectious disease, particularly insect-borne infectious disease. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's my great pleasure to join this GEO meeting. It's first time for me. I enjoyed it very much. Today, I would like to talk about the very interesting topic, vector-borne disease in the context of climate change, and how Earth intelligence approach can be worked for One Health. Yeah. I would like to introduce the growing threat caused by the vector-borne disease such as dengue and other mosquito diseases. Then I would like to share a success story for malaria elimination in China with One Health approach. Then we'll talk about the frontier challenges emerging from the disease such as dengue, chikungunya, and also the other vector-borne disease. After that, I would like to introduce the next generation of the digital intelligence models, how to work for the emergency response for vector-borne disease. And then there are some priority actions I would like to call for actions. The last, I will share this idea. Let's start with the threat caused by the mosquito-borne disease, especially for the dengue and the chikungunya. In the last 50 years, we got a 30-fold increase by this disease, especially for the drivers, such as the climate change, land use change, and the biodiversity losses. And even for the malaria elimination, but we also have the reintroduction caused by this disease and the pressure of the climate change. And we also have some emerging new disease such as the tick-borne disease, SFTS in China, with a very high fatality rate, is about 30%. Yeah. And then there's especially there are two key or the core dilemmas. The first is the passive response pattern, and the second is the data silos between the different sectors, such as for the health, for the meteorology, and for the ecology. Yeah. So we have the malaria elimination success story with One Health concept, with a very good strategy with 1 day reporting and 3 days investigation, and then 7 days full response with the public health. And there we also use the One Health approaches for the agriculture innovative with the rice, fish culture to minimize the breeding size, and the community mobilization with a high quality of the environment, and also the border joint prevention across border efforts, and the core insights to the future. And there's some new challenges from dengue and the new disease caused by the tick. And we have to make use of the observation and the data, and also the intelligent tools to with the high AI-based surveillance and control tools for the effective and high efficient response. Then I would like to promote the 3 key points. The first, the building the interoperable data infrastructure. And the second is develop the predictive early warning system with the new tools, especially for the AI and with the GO. and also to strengthen cross-border One Health monitoring cooperation. And then the last is call for action for the One Health with the integrated the efforts. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Liu. Let's move on to our next speaker, Professor Bing Xu from the Department of Earth System Science, Tsinghua University in Beijing. Please.
Today I'm going to talk about climate change and human health. Thank you. So you can see this framework, the impact of climate change on human health. And given the theme of today's session and cross-cutting partnerships and data interoperability and investing in One Health, I want to show you how our research connects Earth observation and into this disease forecasting and why these different data sets will talk to each other, and which is really the challenge for us. So this is the framework, and you see the climate change and also human activities will impact on this human activity will impact on the human health through direct exposure and also indirect exposure. The direct exposure involves meteorological factors that might be the heat, wind, or temperature or humidity. And the indirect exposure can be through the environmental or biological vectors, such as food, water, and air. And through human activities and also land use changes may have impact on the infectious disease and also non-communicable diseases on the lower left and the lower right. And for the infectious diseases, it can be involved with transmission vectors and also pathogens. It might be bacterial or viruses or parasite or protozoan or all of this, and also the hosts. The hosts can be wild animals and also domesticated animals, and also can be human host as well. So how we link this triangle in One Health with pathogens, hosts, and also transmission vectors together so that we can deal with or modeling this infectious diseases transmission. And also on the right bottom right-hand side, which is the non-communicable diseases. So we have exposure and then risk assessment. And for respiratory diseases or cardiovascular diseases, and also with full disease burden, it can be incidence, mortality, or disease course or disability. And so the point is, every element in this framework can be informed by the Earth observation data in satellite temperature or precipitation or land use. And this are what we model the work. So here shows you the environmental that published in Environmental International, and we have the impact of climate change on human infectious diseases, empirical evidence, and human adaptation. And this award recognizes the research that significantly impact humans' lives around the world. So this is how we have inequality of this distribution of this disease burden. And this actually echoes Professor Liu's talk on climate change and also dengue. So we actually collaborated on this topic, and we did this interannual modeling of this dengue dynamic. The headline, the finding is climate-driven variation in mosquito density predicts the spatial temporal dynamics of dengue. And we use the mosquito surveillance and to integrate this with the traditional compartmental model and of viral transmission to establish this predictive modeling linking climate and also seasonal dengue risk. So the finding is that since 1980 to 2004, and also we have 2005 to 2016, And the impact of dengue gradually expanded from those coastal cities to the inland cities. So climate change does have strong, significant impact on this. Also, we have intra-annual for global COVID-19. And this is also climate driven, within the, right. So this is for the COVID-19. So we have tiered intervention method in, linking the migration data as well. And now we have healthy cities, and the Tsinghua Lancet Commission launched in 2016, and then later on until now we have this. And then the final is the impact of infrastructure on human health. This is very contrary to what we expected, is that the unequal access to the economic infrastructure actually reduces the life expectancy more than hospital access. So just a 10% gap can cut a year off. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Xu. Let's move on to our next speaker, Dr. Amos Tiaranyanga Kabobath from Ghana. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay. All right. I think the previous speakers have made my work easy. So I think what I want to stress in this particular brief talk is the fact that being the co-chair for the Land Degradation Neutrality Flagship, one of the things we are seeing is that land issues, depending on the land degradation, is also nexus to one health issue. So I just try to highlight one of the areas where in Ghana we have a lot of temperatures are very high. Roughly, at least right now, temperatures are above 30 degrees. So, and generally in the north, temperatures go up to almost 40 degrees Celsius. And what is also happening is that in the northern part of Ghana, you have the deforestation is very high. So you have a lot of shrubs. This form like the biomass. So in the dry season, we have two seasons, rainy and dry season, and the dry seasons are generally long. So generally you have quite a lot of things that are being affected when it comes to the wildfires. So we've done quite some work around. I think from the COVID, we've also done quite some work. So I think there will be room for some collaboration. But the aspect of the wildfire, which we collaborated with the Ghana National Fire Service, the National Disaster Management Organization, and we have a specialized center in Ghana, which is called the Air Force Aviation Research and Innovation Center, that is receiving satellite data. So, and we also collaborated with CSIR Meraka Institute in South Africa, and based on that, we came out with some kind of a fire alert system that allows, at that time, the focus was on farmers. It allows us for every farmer to dial we call it USSD code. And for that location, the farmer gets an alert in the language in which they can understand. So this is something that we have done. And now, but at that time, the challenge was also that most of the data we use was MODIS, so it means the spatial resolution is not very good. So currently, as I speak, we've put up a research team, a PhD student and some master students to now research into the use of the 30 meter based on the Copernicus and some other data that are available in order to fine tune this work and if possible, make it available for the use for the policy side. So once again, in our part of the world, One Health is critical. And the part that I want to stress is that when you have wildfire, occurring in a particular location, in fact, what we have tried to do over the years is to quantify the loss. And this has not been easy because in Ghana, what we call herbal medicines becoming very important. So if you look at the linkages, if you have a place degraded and you have wildfire, then the implications of even the preventive health kind of tools or systems are also reduced. So we see clearly that there is a need to collaborate, and to be able to collaborate, I think that is why the GeoLDN flagship will try to think about a mechanism with which we join with the One Health initiative to see if we can come out with some kind of a pilot to see the nexus and to also look at the cost implications, because generally in the country, the National Disaster Management Organization and the National Fire Service are interested to come out with some of those things so that they can be able to know in terms of the prevention, how much money is required in order to remedy the situation. So thank you very much. I think I'm within time, or I have spent more than, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Amos. Let's now move on to our next speaker, Dr. Amadou Sow from Senegal.
Thank you very much. I work at the Centre de suivi écologique in French, Centre de suivi écologique based in Senegal. And today I will show you sorry. Yeah, today I will show you how Senegal is a regional demonstration for the geo-wildfire health nexus. And my institution, CSE, moved from 20 years of fire monitoring to a real decision support system. And I will cover quickly for topics. You want the context and CSE operational fire monitoring system and our contribution in the One Fire architecture, particularly our common project, name it Wildfire Health Nexus with China, Spain, and Senegal. And also for the next step, yeah, in West Africa, the dry seasons run October to June, and when we monitor the fire, we start so October to June, and every year, fire certain headers and also protected area and biodiversity. It is and wildfire smoke is also a global health problem. It causes about 339 premature deaths every year, the worldwide. But in the sub-Saharan Africa, we have almost the half of them, about 150 in sub-Sahara Africa. And as you know, smoke, wildfire smoke harms the lungs, especially for children and older people. For more than 20 years, Centre de suivi écologique, named CSE, has produced weekly fire bulletin. And the big gap is the link between fire monitoring and health. This is our mission, what we try to do in our project. We use MODIS satellite data. We produce about 30 bulletins each year. 30 bulletins, it is between October and June, and one every week of the season. And our resolution is 1 kilometer with high reliability. So it is not a pilot country, but it is already operational node. This season, what I say this season, it is October 2025 to now in May 2026. We detected 2,275 fire, and 509 of them were inside protected area. Each fire has exact coordinate, it is ready for any Earth observation project. And this will feed 2 project modules in our project, because in our wildfire health nexus, we have 9 modules. And this will feed the module, the A module and the map module. And fire in protected area hurt ecosystem. And in One Health, ecosystem health and human health are connected. And our weekly bulletin feeds the A module. It is the A of our systems. And our fire coordinate feeds the map modules for burning area mapping. Next, we plan to have the smoke emission for the emit modules and health exposure for the life modules. Quickly, next step, and I just end with this. Our next step is a decision support system with the aim to reach West Africa. And now we are working on also on adding sub-hourly satellite data for faster detection. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sao. Let's move on to our last speaker, Dr. Alice Hughes from University of Melbourne, Australia. Please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully wake you up after what I hope is a pleasant lunch. So we've heard a lot about some of the pressures that impact the risk of One Health. We've heard about changing climate, we've heard about fire, and we've heard about some vector-borne diseases. But how do we marry together different forms of data so we understand what risks look like across landscapes? And why is an organization like GEO getting, thankfully, more engaged in One Health-related work? So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about assessing the risks of One Health from a wildlife perspective. I will be brief because we don't have a lot of time, but I'm happy to talk to anyone more about this after the session today. So firstly, let's think about some of the situations which can lead to zoonotic spillover. If we think about the interface between wildlife with either humans or other animals that we live with now, those might be domestic animals, they might be pets, they may be livestock. But understanding what these interfaces look like is critical to understanding where spillover may occur. Now let's think a little bit about what factors may drive that spillover. Any pressure in the environment that causes either an increase in the interface between wildlife, humans, and other animals, or increases the stress and therefore increases the susceptibility and the risk of disease spread. And so if we look at any part of the world, what's going to do both of those things? Changes in land cover. When we change land cover, we cause animals to have to move more. We cause them to move through suboptimal conditions. So for example, bats are very susceptible to pesticides. Suddenly you deforest an area, they have to move further to forage, they get exposed to more pesticides, they're expending more energy, and they are coming into contact with more animals that they may either contract pathogens from or spread them to. At the landscape scale, we can now build models that allow us to assess what those risks look like. By understanding the rates of habitat loss and where we have interfaces between intact habitat, the distributions of competent hosts, and where we have human population centers. And so the map you see here, which I'd much rather explain over a series of slides, shows where those risks are at the immediate interface between wildlife and human populations. And the map you see here is purely focused on beta coronaviruses. The reason that's significant? COVID, MERS, and SARS were all basically reservoired in the same group of bats, the rhinolophid bats. And so this map here shows where you may have at-risk populations. It is missing a piece of the puzzle. We do not know if those people have acquired immunity. So I've never had COVID. I have a recommendation for everyone. If you don't want to get COVID, play with bats. If you expose yourself to low doses of any pathogen, you are likely to acquire immunity. However, most of the world does not have that exposure, which means most of the world is at risk. And as we have an interconnected and telecoupled world, the exposure of naive human populations to novel pathogens is going to increase. And thankfully, we have increasing volumes of data that allow us to assess where those risks are, and by encompassing things like changing climate, when they may happen in time. So if we look at what this looks like on the landscape scale, we can see that as we go through a scale of landscape level risk, we infinitely increase the potential for spillover to occur because we are forcing increased interaction between competent wildlife hosts and other forms of animal. And that might be increase in Lyme disease. That might be an increase in the types of ticks, the Lone Star tick, that is now responsible for meat allergies in much of the US. As we degrade these landscapes, we exponentially increase those risks, but using types of data we now have available, including land cover data, plus wildlife data, plus pathogen data, we can start to unpick what those risks look like. Now, I said I was going to talk about wildlife. Of course, the other facet of wildlife which presents a major risk of spillover is wildlife trade. It's not something that in forums like these we talk much about, but you might be alarmed to know that we actually don't even know how many species of wildlife are in trade. IPBES put the number at about 50,000 species in 2022, but in our latest assessment, we find over 100,000 species are in trade. If we know where those animals are coming from, we can start to map out where those risks might be. But unless we start tracking those chains and looking at the exposure, we can't understand what that risk looks like. If we don't understand what the risk looks like, we cannot mitigate it. And so I wanted to leave by thinking about some of the persistent types of gap we need to talk about. Within wildlife, we often have a lack of biosurveillance data. In fact, in some recent analysis we've been doing and looking at wildlife biosurveillance worldwide, we see there is a systematic lack of protocols to actually look at the health of wildlife and what pathogens they have. We also see a lack of collaboration. So when virologists go to the field, they don't collaborate with ecologists and they don't collaborate with people who are mapping out the landscape. And that means that these silos do not collect the data, meaning that our ability to predict what those risks look like or the drivers which occur at the landscape scale and increasingly include climate do not get encompassed into these models, and that does not allow us to move forward. And within wildlife trade, we simply lack much of the data. We don't know where wildlife is coming from. We don't know what those exposure pathways look like. Because of that, we still have a very incomplete knowledge of what those risks are. But we do know the data we need in order to understand it better. And we do now have models that allow us to predict what those risks look like, both spatially and temporally, and increasingly encompassing things like extreme climate events, which are also known to increase spillover because of changing behavior, as well as stress and vulnerability of species. So with that, I'd like to thank you all, and I hope that we're going to have a stimulating discussion with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. With all these 6 fresh talks, now we are open for discussion. I think at the first stage of discussion, we would like to invite audience to respond to these talks on One Health data sharing. Any questions from the audience? Maybe we can mix questions from the audience and the framing questions. Oh, yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a very good presentation for me. I don't work in the field of One Health, but I know the principle of the data sharing NGO. We have a very good principle, but compared with the data sharing in the health, I think maybe most of your data is very sensitive or high value. Maybe I don't know how you consistent with the data sharing principle of you. Thank you.
Maybe Alice, you want to have a first go?
In terms of data sharing, we are not going to move forward without data sharing, but also increased collaboration. And so in some of the work we've done recently, we found that basically a lack of collaboration between different disciplines means that we're not able to advance. So the models aren't necessarily getting smarter because the data that's being generated doesn't cover all of the facets that we need to encompass. However, in the few instances where we do have more comprehensive data, so for example, there is a very good case study of fruit bats in Australia, where they found that the intersection of habitat loss and extreme climate events actually allowed them to, with pretty good reliability, predict when spillover would occur. And when you understand what those intersections look like, you can start managing it. So in that instance, it would be, let's put out alternate food and water resources. So rather than the fruit bats moving into the horse pastures and giving them hendra, they stay in areas and we don't have that interface. So whilst Geo has got good principles and we are seeing increasing dialogue within the One Health discussion, there is still a very long way to go. And I think we're still only scratching the surface of the types of data we really need and the relevant resolutions, which include spatial, temporal, and taxonomic, to be able to have a real understanding and predict these types of phenomena like spillover reliably.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alice. Any? Yes, please.
Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the nice presentations. And I have maybe a question to Alice, but of course, I mean, to the other speakers. It's indeed, I mean, there's no doubt that the changes in the landscape, and because you refer to that in one of your slides, is significantly impacting the expected outbreak of different diseases, and especially the ones that are very much linked to the climate-induced health issues, as we are used to say, especially for vector and mosquito-borne diseases, etc. We do run some rather accurate modeling today for entomological and epidemiological risks, but of course, in all these cases, we have enough data. We have based on data which are systematically corrected and very good accuracy, especially in Europe. But of course, now we can transfer this data to other regions as well. That data are not that good. But I also had an experience also in Europe that after a big flooding event in Germany, we had an outbreak of mosquitoes, Aedes albopictus, that it was not at all predicted by any of our models. All of the models had been validated for the last 10 years. Now, because you refer to that importance of the land change, I mean, do you have now yet some modeling that considers or takes into consideration, I mean, what has been changed in the last mosquito period, or since, I mean, some years now that can predict with some better accuracy what is going to happen in the next season or in the next years? Because I think for us and for the health authorities, I'm sure this is very impactful information if they can have this. Thank you.
So that's a great question. With mosquitoes, of course, in many ways you are lucky because there is much better data. And yet, as you said, there are still instances where things will not be foreseen. I think something we need to get much better at is working with things like disaster preparedness authorities, as well as where we see a risk of predicted flood or any other extreme event, because most of them well link to other forms of risk, and some of them we are not very good at anticipating. And we know that in the case of a lot of wildlife-borne diseases, they are going to be upregulated when there is an extreme event, but also human behaviors change, and that means humans can get more exposed. And I don't think we have got very good at encompassing that in models. I do think in the case of things like malaria, there are probably lessons from other countries where we could say, actually, there are interrelationships here. Suddenly you've got these big stagnant bodies of water. It's not draining. This is going to be a good habitat. And so let's try to prepare for it. But even then, there are always going to be challenges. And so really doing a systems-based approach to, under these scenarios, what is going to create breeding habitat? Well, stagnant water is. And so we can predict that. Obviously, projections of climate still have massive uncertainty, but we do know areas that would be, in your case, flood prone because they're in lowland areas for the most part. Many of them will have a history of flooding. Even a 1 in 1,000-year flood, you can still sometimes say, under these conditions, these are areas, and this is our plan of how we respond. One other thing I would say is with a lot of One Health, from the work we've done, we've seen that responses are generally reactive. Oh, we've got an Ebola outbreak. Let's try and stop it spreading, rather than proactive. And this is where having background biosurveillance and saying, hang on, we are seeing an increase in this pathogen in wild populations. Let's actually stop it from spilling over, or let's stop it from having that initial spread, because getting to an uncontrollable spread point can be rapid, especially if you are in rural areas with poor detection. And so I do think within the One Health paradigm, really shifting towards that proactive, preventative approach is necessary, and we haven't got there yet. But using these kinds of analyses, we can start to understand the types of data we need in order to put the right measures in place in a much more rapid, responsive way than we are now.
Thank you. I think any other panel members want to respond to this data sharing and also maybe prediction or modeling, etc.?
Yes, I wanted to contribute to that. I think looking within geo, maybe is my thinking, but it appears the One Health concept has not yet distilled to all the initiatives properly for us to understand. Because, for example, just as she showed her diagram, any landscape change affects One Health. So, but we have different initiatives working on the different landscape, more or less, analysis. Land cover change, we have, for example, LDN is doing a lot on land cover. But the challenge is, how do we pick our derivatives and link it up to the side of the One Health? I think this is something that maybe within the initiatives, the flagships, we need to think about some concrete pilot in order to demonstrate that. I think that will be very important. Now, another thing, in Ghana recently, we realized that land degradation, which is more of a lot of mining, is, first of all, is affecting microclimate. So invariably, it is changing the behavior of some vectors like, I don't know, I don't have the biological, but like CSM prevalence, the belt has moved from what we used to know because of the changes. Now, another thing that is also happening is we realize that communities where there is mining, usually it also affects children that are born. So you have children born with very complicated conditions. So the landscape risk, so if we can understand from the landscape side, then we can now put in the issue of how to be able to predict. Then I also think another thing we might need to do is for GEO to start to bring in public health experts into our group more, so that they can bring in the other data sets that we don't have. Because the data on the other aspects, women is not EO data. So we need to have that other people coming in. Then jointly we can be able to come out with some nice work out of that. Thank you.
Yeah. Try to be quick, concise.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if I take the case of in Senegal, for example, the problem is how we must move from reacting to preventing. We know that Earth observation gives us early signals from the environment, but the problem is how we can predict the fire and smoke and to protect the people before exposure. And this is what we try to do with in the initiative, in the project Wildfire Health Nexus with China, Senegal, and Spain. And for data sharing, I think the key is common standard and open data. Make sure that the country can speak the same language in terms of data. And this is what we are trying also to do in our initiative. Thank you.
Nicola, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just One Health is very complex. As we have been listening, there are health issues developing very fast on a geographical scale, like mosquitoes or vector-borne disease that are very fast, matter of days. But also regarding the data sharing, that GEO, I think, was thought in 2005 just to facilitate, to leverage the effort of countries for sharing data and information. And when we talk about One Health approach, of course, it's very diverse, because in my introduction, I mentioned the impact on human health due to chemicals. That is a more long-term, medium long-term effect, and that can cause different type of disease. And the sharing of data is crucial, but it depends on many different actors that are at national institution, private sector, and so on. And also to have access to this data, it's not always a straightforward operation exercise. And in Europe, we have tried to somehow, not to solve, but to facilitate the solution through the so-called data space for different sectors, health and energy and biodiversity and so on. That was, I think, a big effort in Europe to facilitate, to develop strategy, and also to allow different institutions to share the information, which is not really easy. Many countries sitting in this room very often have a problem, have a limitation to share information at the national scale for different reasons, for geopolitical reasons, for privacy reason, for many different factors. So it's not easy, but I think One Health is a starting point now. We are starting now to put different pieces of the puzzle together that, of course, involves not only data, but also instrument for data analysis of so different models, because the final goal is really to support decision-making process that sometimes, like what we have been hearing, must be a very fast decision. So you have to have instrument that really allow people that take decision to be quick. Otherwise, if you get later, nothing will happen, and you will not be effective in the resolution of the issues. So I think GEO can can play, and I hope will play a key role in facilitating this sharing of knowledge, data, and instrument. So that's.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience.
Thank you very much, all the panelists and all the presenters. Very specific observation and comment on the presentation by professor from China on the health impacts. Well, we recognize and we see a growing concern with regard to health impacts and what Geo could do. In your presentation, I think you highlighted, but I was also kind of trying to contemplate. Often in the past, we had these public health, preventive, but now we are seeing that more reactive rather than the more business mindsets. The healthcare services are more oriented towards business, reactive rather than preventive. But in the future research, I think I would strongly suggest and recommend that any analytical work towards proactive, preventive, and reactive health benefits for publics, because that's not there. As a policymakers, I think it's something that's critically important to be informed, because I know when I was growing up, the preventive healthcare with public health was something that was quite eminent in most parts of the world, especially in our part of the world. But now, for some reason, it's been kind of diluted, but more towards preventive. So I'm really serious about it. And I also wanted to alert that the transboundary air pollution is somewhat that might need to a deeper dive, because to us, I think that's a serious concern. That impacts health impacts as well as the economic impact, the cost of economy. We are a tourist-dependent country. In Southeast monsoon, people can't really it's not a pristine air. And that's our tourist peak season. And we're losing a lot of revenue too. So just two observations, and thank you, really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe our two Chinese colleagues can respond. Qiyong first, Professor Liu.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments and also the question. I think we feel the similar situations that we also realize in the past. We have the most significant change now from the passive, reactive to the proactive with the One Health, such as I introduced. We eliminate the malaria from China. And you know, in the past, we have 70 million cases per year, but now we have 0 local cases. Yeah. How we fulfill these achievements? We shared a lot of tools with the global, as the WHO, as IRS, LIN, as we all use. But in China, we also stress on the One Health approaches. The first is the inter-sectoral cooperation. For example, for the mosquito breeding, most of them is from the rice field for agriculture with irrigation. And they have to study with the innovative strategies or the approaches. For example, with the rice fish co-culture. And also we try to develop a new seedling, new seeds with the less water can have the high harvest. Yeah. So this is one of the example. and also for the environment. As we all know, the mosquito breeding is because of the water, and especially in the urban area. So we have the patriotic health campaign to mobilize all the sectors and all the communities to work together to eradicate the breeding size, then to decrease the mosquitoes. And then we had with this One Health to support our elimination action plan. So we achieved this malaria elimination by 2021. Yes. But we still have some problems, such as I mentioned there, we have the more and more imported mosquito-borne disease because of the local transmission and the outbreaks. That's dengue, chikungunya. So we still have the lesson, and we still have the projects we need to work together for the One Health, especially with the AI approaches. So last year we got a very serious chikungunya outbreaks in South China. So we try to use the AI-based mosquito surveillance and control projects with the emergency response systems. And we got a very good results. And if we have the chance, we can share our new achievements. But it still have the lot of, we try to make use of the GO, the Earth observation data. I think it's very good. For the AI modeling, we make use of the geo data already, but we can learn from our colleagues in the world to make it better. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Liu. Any response from Professor Xu?
Thank you. In response to the other question on the proactively or working on this rather than just waiting until this happened, then you just passively react to this disease burden. So I think One Health concept is to involve different, not only human health, but also animal health, even plants health or ecosystem health all together. So it involves really different sectors and different, also involving private sectors and different stakeholders. So for example, for human health, it can be in China, if it's prevention and control, it's CDC, which is responsible for. And if it's you get a disease or illness, then you get treatment from hospitals, and all involves Ministry of Health. So it does involve the collaboration among different sectors and stakeholders, including private stakeholders as well. And also the reason why we do this early warning system and also proactively to predict or forecast the dengue dynamic or the COVID-19, for example. So by linking this climate factors and also in cause with this mosquito abundance. For example, in China, there are two types of mosquitoes, and one is Egyptian mosquito, and that one is more resistant to the heat. So with global warming, with higher temperature and in the higher latitude, also in higher elevation, that actually that mosquitoes will still survive. So they can be very resistant. But for the other type of mosquito, for example, they will not survive. They will die basically if it's really hot. So there are two types of change. One is the contraction, the other is expanding. So it really depends on what kind of species of mosquitoes and you are. And also in terms of flooding, and I think it's also diverging impact on the different type of vector-borne, like mosquitoes or for example, snails. And it's very interesting that when the flood coming, And actually the snails will be inundated instead of, they will not survive. So for mosquito, I don't know, probably in the first year with very rapid, flooding events, the mosquito might die as well, but probably for the following year, they will be bounced back. So the disease, the vectors are very different. And also we do the what if scenario analysis. For example, what this happened, or for the COVID-19, and we have different strategies targeting on different cities. For example, for the air passenger flow, and you have infections through this air flight. And also you do this, if you have quarantine before or after, then you have such consequences. Or for example, if you have this flight or not flying anymore, or you cut off different airlines or flights, and they will have this consequence. So we combine different strategies or quarantine strategies, and also this flight line preserving or cutting strategies, and to basically to improve the situation, or control or prevent even further spread of this infectious diseases. So we do have different strategies, and also involving different sectors. So we do involve the collaboration among them. So regarding the data sharing and the technical side, it's much easier to tackle because we have same standard to apply on, so that people from different sectors could talk to each other. But for the political sensitive data, for example, some health data, it requires institutional support, and for those data to be shared, and also to be different sector working together, so that can be shared data. And I think GEO has been doing really well in advancing this standardization and also this sharing data in comparison to health sectors. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any, yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very interesting discussion. I'm Dawood from Catalonia Space Study Institution. I have a very short maybe comment or a question. Do you think if there are hidden patterns in vulnerability assessment for public health? For example, let's imagine that we have a wildfire or a drought in a region, that they are the main producer of a specific agricultural products. And they don't use this product in that region. They export it to another country or region. So do we consider this hidden pattern of public health in a very far region that is being affected by the drought or wildfire in another region that is the origin of producing that specific product in terms of food security, for example?
Mm-hmm. Alice, yeah.
I can give a partial answer. So in short, we're really bad at thinking of systems effects. For example, when the EU Biofuels Initiative came in, it caused mass deforestation in many areas. And so thinking about those telecoupled effects is something that generally we do not do well. And they are significant, and they do permeate many different facets. So for me, from a One Health perspective, the most obvious one, of course, are things like wildlife and fur trade, where actually the patterns of use are changing and there are very high risks associated with it. But even now, and even following a pandemic, the regulations that are in place do not address most of these types of risk, because if we were to look at wildlife trade, most of the international regulations are targeted at a subset of species that are traded in high volumes, so livestock, for example. But now everyone knows what monkeypox is. What you probably don't know is one of the first times there was an outbreak in the US, it came in with pet prairie dogs, because tropical and exotic animals, as well as those traded for fur trade, can have major risks. And yet we're still not very good at thinking of those kinds of interlinkage.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think indeed that's a problem in the embedded risk in the global trading or other movement, mobility of people and commodities, etc. I'm conscious about the time for this special session. I think that our panelists have covered a large ground from biodiversity to infectious disease, exposome and wildlife, and also we have covered some special geographical locations, so pretty much representative of these global challenges regarding One Health. And we also have discussed about data sharing. This is indeed a big challenge. Data sharing between countries, between sectors, between, I wouldn't say scientific disciplines. Right. One of the challenges for One Health is the barriers between different silos, environmental science, ecology, infectious disease, medicine, etc. And really illustrates that integration is a key to ensure One Health for the future, for the sustainable and a healthy future. And I believe GEO is a great platform that we can leverage on for collaboration, for exchange of ideas, and also for capacity building, perhaps. Through this GEO mechanism, we can help each other by exchange experience and also scientific discoveries, and apply those knowledge into practices in different scenarios. And then we can, again, learn from each other and integrate the indigenous knowledge with frontier science. And I think that maybe one of the outcome we can see from this discussion is really to build up a global community. The community, within that community, we can collaborate for research, for data sharing, for modeling. I think modeling is particularly important. We talk about whether it is a passive reaction or proactive reaction. And I think robust modeling will really help us to predict in well advance, to enhance our preparedness for future, for example, pandemics or other impacts of environmental changes on human health and environmental health. So I think with that, I would like to wrap up our session, and I really want to invite all of you to join me to thank all the panelists for their excellent presentations and great discussions, and also thank you for your participation. And I hope it's a real new start for One Health, particularly under GEO umbrella. We hope in the future we work together. Thank you so much.